Okay, so yesterday we talked about putting the names in order by how many letters were in the name. So if it had 4 letters in their name, we would put a telly mark on the 4 and we counted up how many were on each. So if you have it correctly, you should have, there were 2 telly marks for 4, 4 telly marks for 5, 8 telly marks for 6, 7 telly marks for 7, 2 telly marks for 8, and 7 telly marks for 9. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put those Chinese names on a number plot line. So we're going to have a line as such. And I put this in your Google Classroom, so you'll see a line just like this, and it was numbered from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, I believe we went up to 17, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. For the Chinese names, we do not need to go all the way up because we noticed that it started off at 4 and it went to 9. So our data set was from 4 to 9. So again, for 4 letters, names that have 4 letters, there were 2. So we're going to put 2 marks on top of 4. On names that have 5 letters, there was a total of 4. So instead of telly marks, we're going to create X's. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 names that had 5 letters. Where we have the telly marks, now we're just converting it to X's. So for 6, there was a total of 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're just converting all of those telly marks into X's. You're going to do the same for 8 and 9. You will also do the exact same thing for the American names. If you see in your Google Classroom, there's a line like this from 4 all the way to 17. Now, when you get to problem C, use the line plot. This is our line plot. It says use the line plot you made in question B. Look at the shapes of the distribution in the data set. The data set for the Chinese names was from 4 to 9. So let's finish that one out and we'll talk about that. So for 7, we had 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. For 8, we had 2. And then for 9, we had 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now we're going to use some of the words that I talked about yesterday. How is the data distributed? Is it even? Are all of these, let me make this one, oops, let me make this one smaller. Are all of these even? No, and I could see because if I draw a line, some are on top, some are on bottom. If they were even, it would go straight across. We talked yesterday briefly about a curve. Does it go up and then come down? I would say no, because it goes up and then comes down. So we see that our curve goes up and then it comes down. So we cannot say that it increases then decreases. So let's talk about these 2 new words that we have. How would you describe the shape of the distribution? Are there any places where the data values cluster or group together? Are there any gaps or places where there's no data value? So I gave you a sentence frame. So for the Chinese names, the data is clustered. Clustered means a group, a cluster of them, a group of them. A gap, if I had one way over here on 13, I could say that there was a gap between 9 and 13, but there's not. That's just what a gap is. It means a hole. So to answer your question for C1, how would you describe the data? The data for the Chinese names was clustered between 4 and 9. You can say the values increased up to 6 and then slowly decreased and then went back up at 9. Describe. What words can you use to describe? Again, increase, decrease, cluster, gap. Those are all words that you should use. Question C2. Write 2 questions about the Chinese and US classes that you can answer from your graph. So with this one, you can make up any questions for your graph. So you can say, which Chinese names had the longest or the most letters? You can go to number 6. What was the shortest Chinese name? You can say it's between, or which one had the least amount of data. You can say 8 and 4. 4 letters and 8 letters. Majority of them had 6. So the majority of the Chinese names in this data set had 6 letters. The least amount of letters was either 4 or 8. Number 3, write 3 statements to compare the name lengths of the US students and the Chinese students. So you're going to have to compare the 2 graphs. What do you notice? All the Chinese names are here. Where are the American names? What do you notice about them? Who had the greatest number of letters? Who had the least amount of letters? 3 comparing statements. So they need to have the words Chinese and the words American in them. Write 3, describe how the line plots helped you compare the name lengths for the 2 classes. So what can you say? Describe how these line plots, not the telemarks, but these, how did they help you answer or to create your questions that you just asked? So you didn't have any direct data, but you're looking at the line plot here. What did this line plot help you figure out? So that was C. D1, identify a typical name length or name lengths for the Chinese class. Explain your reasoning. So, in a complete sentence, the typical Chinese name has about how many letters? How do you know that? Are you looking at this graph? About how many letters? Can you say they have about 5 to 7? Absolutely. The typical Chinese name in this Chinese class has about 5 to 7 letters because most of our X's are clustered right here between 5 and 6. Most of the 17 students are right in here. So that is one thing that we can say. D2, identify a typical name length or name lengths for the US classes. Explain your reasoning. So as we said for the Chinese, the typical are anywhere from 5 to 6. Look at your American data. Where do you see majority of the X's at? Where do they stand? So that is going to be your answer. Make sure these are in a Google Doc. Hit submit and hope you have a wonderful day. It's pretty outside. Enjoy it. See you later.